Hi everybody, it's Marc Laurenson here from SAS, and thanks for joining me as we talk about May 2025. Now, you know how the conjunction on everybody's lips is the Neptune-Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. Well, there is another little body that's coming into the picture in May, and that's a dwarf planet Ceres. She's going to be joining these two and forming a stellium, forming a little stellium at the very, very beginning of Aries. But she's coming in to join Saturn at the end of Pisces first. Now, May is going to be really, really interesting because of this. So, before I get stuck into exactly what this is going to mean, I'm just going to give you some of the dates to start off with, okay? So, Ceres is a dwarf planet. A lot of people still think she's an asteroid, but she was promoted. She takes about 4.5 years to go around the sun, okay? She takes roughly 3 to 4 months to go through each of the signs. Her orbit is elliptic, so some signs she goes through a little bit quicker than others. Now, she went into Pisces in February 24, 25, depending on where you are in the world. Now, she comes into conjunction with Saturn on May 10, 11, all the way to May 16, 17. So for that handful of days, she's in conjunction with Saturn. Okay. She goes into Aries, she moves into Aries on May 16, 17. And then she comes into conjunction with Neptune, May 19, 20 at 1 degree of Aries, until May 23, 24. So there's a handful of days that she's conjunct Neptune as well. Now, Saturn moves into Aries on May 25, 26. Okay. And so these three planets are all in this very, very tight stellium for the rest of May. Okay. And it's so interesting because a lot of people are talking, as I said, about the Saturn Neptune, which of course are going to be stronger, are going to be there for a lot longer. But Sherry's been there, at the beginning of it, and she's going to move off relatively quickly. But at the same time, there's a lot to be said about what's going on here with Ceres because she's pretty much there for most of May and even into early June. So let's talk about what her energy is about and what she could mean in our lives in this particular stellium. Okay, now Ceres is Moon Pluto to me. Ceres is kind of like the moon on steroids, moon turned right up. And a lot of you would know about Ceres' story. She is Demeter, Demeter in Greek mythology, and Persephone, her daughter, was kidnapped by Pluto and taken down into the underworld. And Demeter, Ceres, was the agricultural goddess. She kept everybody fed. She was the goddess of the grain and the crop. And so when she was distraught and when she was going through her turmoil, she barren the land. And so everyone was starving. And people didn't actually start to get fed again until she was happy. And when she was happy, it was when Persephone came back on land again for a short period of time, of course. So here we have a planet that love and survival are kind of equated. It's that feeling that we need to be fed. We were all starving. Everybody in the town was starving when Ceres was distraught. And so here we have to kind of look at where we are starving, where we are malnourished, where we are in our own version of famine. And you see this all the time. You just go out in the street and you see a lot of people's faces and just a lot of people's demeanors and their energy. And they are emotionally malnourished. They truly are. And we all are in our own ways, some more than others, of course. But I really, really believe that this Ceres energy coming into our lives and coming into this particular stellium at this time is going to be huge on us being able to feed ourselves, being finding the food we need. Now, this is not so much literally as figuratively, but I just do want to say that the topics that are going to come up in May, possibly, on the news, and definitely in our lives, will be food. Food will definitely be a major, major topic. Not enough of, the price of, too much of, all that kind of stuff. And in our lives, I want to say food will be there in our lives. Are we going to overeat in May or are we going to undereat in May? You know, we have to kind of be looking at that and what are we eating for or what are we not eating for? What are we trying to hide? What are we trying to, cover? What are we trying to fill that emptiness in us? So, again, food, be very, very conscious of food and how you're using food. I want to say some people might actually turn it right around, hopefully, and go into something on the level of finding food, the healthiest kind of food that they can have. Um, as a kind of like a healing remedy. That would be perfect. Another thing that's going to come up big time for sure is mothers. Mothering, motherhood, mothering child, your mother, your child, your relationship with both. That's definitely going to be a hot topic for May. It really, really will be because Ceres is the mother-child dynamic. And there's a lot to be said when you're looking at Ceres in natal charts with that kind of stuff, for sure. I bring her into charts quite a lot these days, particularly when she's in strong aspect. And she has a lot to say because as I said, there is something about that Ceres energy uh, that feels that it's going to die, not literally, but, definitely it feels like it's going to die if it doesn't get what it needs, if it doesn't get the nourishment or the sustenance that it needs. And so I want to say May is going to be very, very pronounced on the level of how we are looking after ourselves, how we're giving ourselves what we need. What do we love in life? Are we giving that to ourselves? Are we really and truly um feeding ourselves as we would our baby or our dog, are we malnourishing ourselves? Are we starving ourselves? These are all questions that we need to ask ourselves in May. And what do we need in our lives that is going to make us feel fed and that feeling of being nurtured and loved. That's all that is strong Seri stuff. Okay. So for us, we have to, in our own ways, come into a place now of, I want to say, quite extreme self-care because of what's going on here. I've written down things to do with nature and the garden, because Ceres was all about that. I feel very much like she, being in that area, being in that environment, being in that atmosphere is going to be really, really important for us in May. Be amongst the trees, be amongst the flowers and the vegetables, go to the markets, go to those kind of places, and particularly markets that sell beautiful food and organic kind of food and fresh food, that kind of thing. And fill up your basket. Be in environments where there's a lot of joy and happiness and love and laughter. That's so, so important for me with Ceres in this stellium. Now, I want to bring in the feeling that Ceres would have when she's with Neptune and Saturn, because we've got to play her in the kind of like the grouping of what's going on here. Okay, so Neptune could actually be a dream that you have or a vision that you have for yourself that you haven't really fed yourself with, that you haven't really allowed yourself to really be to give yourself what you need through this. And there's love involved in this. And Saturn is always looking at what are you going to do with it? What are you going to structure it into something? Are you going to make it into something? So there's definitely going to be something to do with that. There's going to be something to do with you kind of crystallizing an idea or crystallizing something quite beautiful that you've always wanted for yourself. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be momentous. It could be something quite small, but it's just enough to give you that kind of emotional rush to fill you up, to give you that love and to give you that food kind of that you need for the month. Um, I've written down self-care, and I think self-care is really, really important with Ceres. And because it's with Neptune and because it's with Saturn, there might be something to do with spiritual self-care or soulful self-care, on the level of maybe a little bit more stuff to do with maybe meditation or long walks on the beach or quiet time. And again, there's something about the Saturn need to ritualize it a bit. The Saturn need to discipline yourself a little bit with it. Try to do it on a daily basis. That kind of thing will come into it too, as well. Be very, very careful of overdoing or underdoing things. I feel that, especially as I said earlier on with food, overeating and undereating is going to be a big, big thing for May. So, again, I'm not saying, don't eat too much or whatever. I'm not saying that kind of thing, but I'm just saying that usually when you overdo something or you underdo something, it's a reaction to something that you're not getting enough of yourself. And it's about you being able to come into a place, where you can actually start to feed yourself with the stuff you love rather than actually looking outside yourself for anything that's going to take away the pain, so to speak. So just be very, very conscious of being able to find things in your life that bring you joy, that put a smile on your face, that make you feel loved. Be around people, be around people that do that with for you and you can share that with as well. That's super, super important too. Um, when I think of Ceres, the first thing I think of when I think of Ceres, because she's a big topic, she truly is. I've done many talks on her alone, and I feel a lot of the people that in my who come to see me talking in my classes, I feel that they really, really a lot of pennies drop with Ceres. I feel that they really get so much out of her that they didn't know about and about themselves and where they might be missing out on something. Will often come from early childhood. It will often come from the family environment and where it was there and how it was measured there and all that kind of stuff as well. So really and truly, it's about you being able to come into a place where you can do the mothering and the caring for yourself. But with the Neptune and with the Saturn, I feel has to be a feeling of compassion. Where what do you feel compassionate about? Where does your sensitivity lie? Where does your heart want to go? And as I said, Saturn's always about doing something about it. Saturn's always about taking it into your own hands, basically, and becoming the author of it. So if there is something out there, if there is something out there that you always think, oh, I'd love to put my heart into that, or that's always been, something that has pulled me emotionally, maybe May is the time to do something about it. Maybe May is the time to actually put a little bit of your own work into doing something about what makes your heart sing, possibly for other people as well. But definitely come back to yourself because always feel that you have to in your own way. You have to feed yourself first. It's the old aeroplane thing, where they say put on your own mask before you put on somebody else's. It's so true. It's so true. So in May, just be very conscious of this. Just be very conscious of being able to give yourself and feed yourself with the love and the joy and the nourishment and the feeling of heart and compassion will definitely come into this for yourself and for others. Uh, and to be able to feel fed, to be able to sit comfortably in this, to be able to allow your feelings to flourish. Because when you think of Ceres, Ceres did feed everybody when she was happy. When she was happy, everybody was fed, and everyone was joyous. And so this is about May. May is about this. May is a joyous time. May is a time for festivities and parties and times where everybody has enough. So make sure that in your life, however it goes, wherever it wants to take you, that Ceres is feeding you exactly what you need.